Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. Welcome to today's podcast. I need help knowing what day it is. It is Wednesday, June 17th, 2020, and I'm still doing my skin peel. So those of you watching the video, I apologize for what I look like, but it is part of the skin peeling process. And then I will be oh so lovely when it's all done. So thank you for your patience with my slightly mummified, crackly, bizarre look. Today we are talking about design thinking, and I get asked all the time, what do I think of design thinking, and why don't I like it, and why am I against it, and why isn't it a good idea, and can't we just teach people design thinking now and teach them more proper UX later? And so I've put together a presentation that should answer all of the questions anybody could ever have for me about design thinking, at least for the foreseeable future. So what I'm going to do is I have a number of slides that I'm going to show. If you are listening to the audio-only version on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify, hello there. Thank you for listening to the podcast. You are not missing anything because typically my slides are one stock photo that I speak over for a long time, or my slides have some of the words that I am saying. So there's nothing really that I need to describe to you. There's nothing that you're missing. There aren't any charts or graphs. So there won't be any description of slides, as pretty much what you hear me say is what people are seeing. So with that, I'm going to jump on in and I'm going to start these slides. I have about 45 minutes of content, but I will take a peek now and then at the chat. So if you are joining live and you're here in the LinkedIn chat or the YouTube chat, and I'll just take a quick peek to see if these things are running. So if you are joining live, feel free to throw your comments and questions and thoughts in as I go. I may or may not address them immediately, but they will be there, and I will say something when I can. So that being said, let's slide me down into the corner and start talking about some of these slides. And, oop, I've got a little thing I have to fix there. And also, a quick reminder to please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, which is Delta CX. We've got almost 500 subscribers already. Thank you so much to everybody who's been interested in these videos. And also, I've got a Slack workspace that is free to join, and you can always catch me there. So deltacx.link, which is my URL shortener, /join Slack, all is one word, and that's an open invitation. So come on down. And hello to Darren, who's joining us on LinkedIn. So let me get a couple of screens ready to go. And let's shift over to controlling the slides. Here's that. Okay, great. And a couple of these slides you'll also see in the Design Sprints podcast or the Lean UX Isn't Lean or UX podcast, but because they fit here, they're also here. So a couple of overlaps. So here we go. Aspirologies, that's my made-up word for trendy methodologies that aspire to greatness but miss the mark or actually hurt our processes, teams, or product. Calling these methodologies gives them too much credibility. Typically, they aim to reduce or reassign specialized CX tasks and work to other roles, or sometimes entire teams working by committee. And just a quick reminder that I'm shifting a lot of my language to CX. I believe CX and UX are mostly interchangeable, but for a variety of reasons I'm not going into right now. I tend to say CX more than I tend to say UX, but I'm not talking about something outside of this. So if you work in UX and you see your world as UX, I'm talking about you when I say CX. Okay, so back to the slide. So aspirologies often have ego-based or emotional goals, like non-CX people at our company want to design solutions too. Well, I'd like to help with the DevOps CI/CD pipeline, but let's be honest, no one will let me anywhere near that. Teammates wanting to be involved in something doesn't mean they should be involved in something, and that's why we need to burn these quickly to the ground. So let's look at the history of the term design thinking. Once upon a time, let's just check. Yep, okay, my sound's good. Everything looks good. Once upon a time, design thinking actually meant something meaningful. One of the earliest uses of the term design thinking was actually in a 1959 book, and it was called Creative Engineering. And it has a quote that says, "It is rather interesting to look over the developmental history of any product or family of products. Your group, too, might have gotten into a rut and is inadvertently doing all of your design thinking in one area and is missing good bets in other areas." In 1965, L. Bruce Archer wrote a book called Systematic Method for Designers, and this book included the quote, Ways have had to be found to incorporate knowledge of ergonomics, cybernetics, marketing, and management science into design thinking." Archer also says in this book, quote, "The time is rapidly approaching when design decision making and management decision making techniques will have so much in common that the one will become no more than the extension of the other." End quote. Don't we wish that were true? Ah! There was an original book called Design Thinking in 1987, but it was actually aimed at architects and urban planners. So it's not really necessarily about our CX UX realm. Oop, and I accidentally loaded up all my content here. In the late 1980s, Ralph Fast said that the creative design practice was design thinking. He wanted solutions created holistically and based in what we understand about users. When I've seen Don Norman mention design thinking, he has said it's basically human centered design and everything that goes with it. But today, design thinking somehow ended up as an easy, anybody can do it, paint by numbers, just follow these steps approach to our products, services, and experiences, which I like to call PSE for short. This is why when people ask me what I think of design thinking, I ask, which definition are you using? I can see how definitions from the late 80s or early 90s understood the complexities of CX and UX work. They were focused on what solutions could be created based on customer needs. That sounds good. But if you tell people today you're into design thinking, what does it mean now? Wikipedia defines design thinking as, quote, "cognitive, strategic, and practical processes by which design concepts, proposals for new products, buildings, machines, etc., are developed by designers and or design teams. Design thinking is also associated with prescriptions for the innovation of products and services within business and social contexts. Some of these prescriptions have been criticized for oversimplifying the design process and trivializing the role of technical knowledge and skills." End quote from Wikipedia. It sounds like few of us share the definition of design thinking, or at least the same one. Is it a paradigm, framework, toolkit, mindset, canvas, exercises, process, approach, methodologies, or something else? Is it user centered design or the exact way that CX pros do our work? Is it just a cottage industry offering endless paid certificates and training? What is it? Who does it? Who doesn't do it? There are 5 steps in modern design thinking, and they are empathize, define the problem, ideate, prototype, and test. Design thinking's current target audience isn't CX practitioners because these 5 steps and many more are instinct for us. They're baked into our processes, approaches, and tasks. Nobody has to teach CX and UX practitioners design thinking, and nobody has to remind us to empathize. Like many of the aspirologies aimed at the masses, the modern definition of design thinking trivializes and minimizes CX and what it does by boiling user centered design down to what feels like a minimum viable process. Others are being taught that if they can just quickly frame the problem and jump into brainstorming solutions and sketching, this is similar to what CX pros are doing. In trying to create a term or process friendly to sound bites, workshops, and certifications, a monster has been created. Let's talk a little bit about the definition of empathy, since this is just very confusing for so many people. The original definition of empathy was emotional empathy, feeling what others feel along with them. But that got a little woo-woo for some people, so there became this secondary definition, which is cognitive empathy, understanding people so you can see their world through their eyes, taking their perspective without your biases. Well, in reality, few people are truly capable of either of these. If you're not sure, check your Facebook feed for what people are saying about racism, poor people, and pandemics. And this should also remind us that we're not able to change people who lack empathy. Empathy cannot be created, which means please stop telling low empathy people, step one, just have empathy. The original definitions of empathy exclude a lot of people who are naturally low on empathy, so we tried again to redefine empathy to make it something everybody's capable of. Now you'll hear definitions of empathy include things like, are you thinking about users? Do you care about customers? Well, then you're showing empathy. But I would say that's wrong. That's actually closer to sympathy. You might also hear, let's make a customer journey map based on what we know about users. Well, if what you know isn't from deep quality research, it's guessing and assuming. That's bad and risky. This isn't what empathy is. It would be okay if our coworkers had sympathy for customers. Let's please stop saying everything is solved by having empathy. Most people have little empathy, but perhaps sympathy will do if we can drum it up. Remember, a greeting card that says, I'm thinking about you because your cat died is a sympathy card, not an empathy card. So, I'm thinking about users isn't empathy. At best, it's sympathy. And if creating empathy worked, then the moment you told a stakeholder that customers are struggling with our product, you would have a project spun up with all the time, money, resources, and headcount you need to fix it. That's not happening because it takes so much more than empathy. An article on LinkedIn describing design thinking exercises said you could create a customer journey map, and here's the quote. For example, imagine you are describing. It says, imagine you are designing a new experience of going through the TSA checkpoint at the airport. This article said, your moments along the top of this user journey might be pack for the trip, travel to the airport, arrive at the airport, find the security line, show your ID to TSA, go through security, find the gate, and arrive at your destination. The article continued to say, once you have your top level journey moments or touch points, use your personas to go step by step and capture what your user is feeling, thinking, and doing at every phase. Through this process, you can begin to map the breadth of problems your user faces to identify the most prominent issues to tackle through design or innovation. Might be? Was this guessed at? Or did we do proper CX research to know what our customer's journey is? The first problem with what this article says is that a persona alone can't tell you what a customer's feeling, thoughts, and actions are at each stage. If we're not creating the customer journey map from solid data collected from speaking to and preferably observing real customers to understand their actual journey, then we are assuming and guessing. And CX is a discipline looking to stay away from assumptions and guessing. The second problem with this article is that if we want to be honest and complete about customers' experiences, steps, and their full range of emotions, we must look at more than the top level steps. We can't just generalize phases of a journey. We should capture all of the struggles and failures as well as the smooth sailings. Remember that every customer touch point matters. This article's journey map highly oversimplifies a pretty complicated process of going to the airport. The journey will vary if the taxi is a no-show, your bag's overweight and costs extra, your carry-on is too large to be a carry-on, they caught you with extra carry-ons when the limit is one, security goes through your stuff, your flight changes gates, or if your flight is delayed or canceled. Add additional steps if you are having an international flight that requires passport and visa checks at the departure and arrival points, and add additional steps if nobody in the airport speaks your language or if you have a disability. A customer journey map, imagining that most or all steps go well, or as planned, or based on things we imagine people are going to do that will work for them. That's just flawed and non-realistic. Same thing for customer journey maps that only include non-disabled people. How can we expect these team workshop exercises to go well when they make customer journey maps that are flawed, incomplete, biased, and skewed? This is your customer's experience. Understanding it thoroughly is important to the customer and to the business. If our exercises start out with a misunderstanding or oversimplification of the customer's process, or if this exercise starts out with guesses and assumptions about the customer's journey, the internal team workshop has already negated itself. We shouldn't skimp, cut corners, use shortcuts, or try the shortest version possible when it comes to any area of CX. If we're not dealing with the realities of our customers' experiences, what's the point? What will these exercises accomplish? Can these exercises still get everyone to successfully empathize with customers when we haven't correctly defined their real journey, steps, experiences, or emotions? Someone I knew on LinkedIn decided to skip all of the training material for the IBM Enterprise Design Thinking course and go straight to the test. 15 minutes later, he was a certified IBM design thinking practitioner, and he posted to LinkedIn saying, quote, "This is a fundamental problem with how people look at and educate human-centered design efforts. It takes years and tons of practice to do this well. To be a practitioner, you must develop and hone several skills that this course didn't even touch on." End quote. And he's right. Thinking about the 5 steps of design thinking, I have to ask, and this is for all design thinking training and certificates, not just IBM, did anybody judge your ability to empathize? If you have low empathy, will you be rejected from getting a design thinking certificate? Hold on, don't interrupt me. I'm empathizing. As I like to say, if you can't interrupt me doing it, it's not a step. How about number 2? Did anybody judge how well you understood customers and their pain points? Where did you get your information about customers? Was there deep, high quality research? Did you guess and assume what customers needed or might do? Did you perform a task analysis? Step 3. Who judged how well you ideated? We're supposed to be innovating and disrupting, right? Were your ideas good, bad, viable, innovative? Did anybody judge your strategic approach to choosing which prototyping method you would use? Did anybody not get their design thinking certificate because their prototyping work was poor? And finally, step 5, test. Oh, testing. Did anybody examine your research plan, selected participants, testing method, execution of the testing, or interpretation of that testing? Did anybody check if anything about your testing was flawed or biased? None of these were checked for any depth or quality. Everybody gets a trophy and walks away believing they are great at these things. Many believe they do them at the level of CX and UX professionals. That's bad for our industry since expert CX and UX practitioners can't be replaced by design thinkers. IBM holds its own beer as it unleashes a giant cottage industry of all kinds of design thinking certificates and badges. Ooh, you gotta collect them all. And don't forget walls of sticky notes. Put up a picture of people looking at walls of sticky notes. Make them look thoughtful. It's not design thinking unless we have walls of sticky notes in the office or virtually. Put walls of sticky notes behind you when you are on a video call. IBM is trying to turn their whole design thinking universe into like an agile training type of universe where you have all these different levels that require training and certification. So let's learn about IBM's levels. The practitioner participates in design thinking activities and shares enterprise design thinking with others. Sounds like you're thinking about design thinking. The co creator collaborates with her team to understand her users' needs through testing and interviews. I got these things I'm reading from the IBM website. That's why some of them have genders, where I would have left out genders. So she understands her users' needs through testing and interviews. She presents findings and ideas to various audiences and sketches storyboards to explain her thinking. So here you can see how they're trying to create a line already between someone who practices design thinking versus the co-creator who appears to be doing some sort of CX or UX work. Are they hoping to replace titles like experience designer and CX architect with enterprise design thinking co-creator? That's a downgrade in many ways. Next, as you level up in IBM's world, they have the coach. The coach guides his team through design thinking work by suggesting when and how to learn through making or design research. The making's a little weird. The coach shares design thinking work with clients, users, team advocates, and leaders. And the coach facilitates design thinking sessions and workshops. Okay, sounds like the coach is your facilitator and possibly a pseudo strategist. The advocate seems to just sit around looking at his phone. There he is. The advocate conveys the value of enterprise design thinking up and down the chain of command in the organization, shares success stories of the teams with their peers across the organization, and collaborates with leaders to eliminate blockers for his teams to engage in design thinking activities. Someone wrote, the sarcasm in tone is palpable, and hearing you do it lets me know what I sound like to my boss and other executives. You're welcome. Yes, be careful of your tone. I am definitely being wacky and sarcastic for entertainment effect. Does not work very well at work. Mind your sarcasm at work. I try to have zero sarcasm at work. So the advocate sounds like they're an evangelist, and no wonder they've got time to sit and look at their phone. Everybody loves design thinking, and what blockers could it possibly have? Yet CX can't seem to get time, budget, or headcount, but will evangelize in design thinking, whatever that is. IBM has more levels for you to go up. The leader strategizes how to change the composition of teams to be more diverse and user centered, creates conditions for a design thinking culture to thrive, builds programs to grow the design thinking skills of the people in her organization. Again, this sounds like strategy and evangelism. I assume IBM is getting ready to replace all CX and UX titles with this crap, and that would be a sad day for our profession. When I see IBM and other companies pushing design thinking this hard, I wonder one main thing. Why are they not pushing UX or CX? Why not push human centered design or user centered design? Why did they spend all this time creating programs, badges, I guess certificates or not certifications, certificates, educations, tests, and levels of roles of people when we already have this? They could be spreading the word about human centered design, and instead, they're spreading the word about design thinking. This is bad for our profession. We are so much more than design, and we are so much more than thinking. And we're so much more than a term that's changing its definition every few months. Hello to Praveen in YouTube. I'm taking a 56-hour course right now in Lean Six Sigma. Their main process is 5 steps: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Sounds easy, but they need most of those 56 hours to explain them to you because they're freaking complicated and full of important tasks. Okay, I know Six Sigma can suffer from analysis paralysis, but even if we did 10% of what's on this screen right now, and those of you listening to the audio version, I've put up a list of all of the analyses and deliverables and processes and matrices that you can create in each step of Lean Six Sigma, and each of the 5 steps has about 20 or 30 things that you could do. So that's what you're missing when you don't see that. Um, so as I was saying, even if we did 10% of the stuff that's on the screen right now, we could see the real complexities behind what could otherwise look like an easy 5-step process. And there's some important stuff on here that takes planning, expertise, and time, like validating and analyzing the voice of the customer, validating the problem statement and goals, identifying root causes, reducing the list of possible root causes, confirming the relationship between root causes and output, estimating the impact of root causes on outputs, and prioritizing root causes. I've barely touched this diagram, but don't you wish that every project did more of these? Yes, Six Sigma could be leaner, but boiling it down to 5 easy steps anybody could do does it a great injustice. One of my favorite slides in the deck. Design thinking is not critical thinking. Here's something I read when I was researching for my Delta CX book and trying to find positive case studies about design thinking. It was written by a guy who worked at an agency, and he said, quote, "An example is a request from a new client to redesign a bike part. Sales have slowed, and they believe that a new design will spark renewed interest and help fend off competitors. Absent of design thinking, we would dive in and create a new slick design for this specific bike part. Employing the design thinking process, however, we would get dramatically different results. The 5-step design thinking process reveals that the problem can't be resolved with a newly designed bike part." End quote. This isn't design thinking. This is critical thinking and not being your client's order taker or grunt working pair of hands. Design thinking doesn't save an agency or a worker from the mistake of redesigning a bike part when perhaps there's a better solution. Someone doing design thinking could easily empathize with customers who would prefer a redesigned bike part, consider the problem this redesigned part would solve, ideate on it, prototype it, test it on real or potential customers, and declare that the redesigned bike part is a success and exactly what customers needed. Design thinking does not automatically keep people from taking products and services in the wrong direction. We need critical thinkers, our curious researchers, and our low ego action heroes who would start with the question, is this what customers really need? Or, as Don Norman might say, is this the right problem to solve? Or are we solving symptoms of larger or other problems? If that's not being asked, or if the design thinking exercise seeks to stay within what a stakeholder has described or suggested, then the activity may suffer from garbage in, garbage out. If a stakeholder shows up and says, this bike part is a problem and we need to redesign it, who will stand up and say, that might be wrong? We should, CX and UX, but we don't always feel like we can, and we're not always invited to those meetings. Therefore, design thinking is not what's giving you direction you didn't have before. Curious, critical thinkers who feel empowered to break out of stakeholder requests and clients' predetermined ideas are who drive product and service concepts and designs toward better customer value, lower business risk, and better outcomes. You can have design thinking without critical thinking, and you can have critical thinking without design thinking. Quick drink. Our work is about depth and quality. It's not about checking tasks off a list regardless of how they were done. It's about building a customer journey map because we interviewed and observed the customers. Our company and projects are too important to be left to guessing, assuming, imagining, or crowdsourcing a customer journey map in a group exercise. Our work is not a craft project where everyone can come glue popsicle sticks together. Incidentally, version 2 of design sprints do not allow workshop attendees to prototype or test. The design sprint is over after you pick a winner, and the facilitator, or hopefully some CX experts, then prototype and test. And then they report back to everybody how it went. Prototyping and testing were deemed too important to be stabbed at by the team, so it's left to experts. Version 3 of design sprints removed everything relating to defining the problem from the group exercises. They found that the stated problem was often garbage and couldn't be validated. So version 3 requires experts to do weeks of research before the design sprint. They interview customers, they create personas, they do the customer journey maps. These are not done as team exercises. I'm against design sprints also, as you can see from the podcast on design sprints, but I wanted to mention this since it's interesting how people are figuring out that having our teammates try to do our work really doesn't create the best outputs or outcomes. It also shows that if we remove what design sprints know shouldn't be done as a group exercise, the only thing we have left is everybody sketch solutions and vote on your favorite. Design thinking invites teammates to guess at customer journey maps, sketching wireframes, and testing concepts. That was our job. And now it looks like everybody's unspecialized, anybody can do it job. Our work isn't some sort of group craft project where everybody in the room votes to find the winner among today's sketches. Do you hang design ideas at your desk and ask coworkers to drop by and pick their favorite? I sure hope you don't. Here's General Assembly posting to LinkedIn in 2009. It says, empathizing with users isn't just a UX concept. How applying design thinking to code refactoring can lead to a better software experience. The linked article says that before engineers refactor bad code, step 1, empathize with the audience. Step 2, define the problem. Step 3, ideate on different solutions. Step 4, prototype. Step 5, test the code. What did engineers needing to refactor code do before someone told them to use design thinking? I can't imagine saying this to developers and having them not punch me in the face. Here's something else from LinkedIn. A company proudly proclaimed that the elementary school kids they asked to imagine how people would live and get around on a newly discovered island were the best design thinkers around. Are they doing what we're doing? How about this this January 2020 article from Fortune magazine's newsletter, quote, "The coronavirus problem could be solved with design thinking," end quote. The article had no proof or evidence that it could do this, but the author was sure that the government of China just needed more empathy and ideating. That jumps the shark. You guys know the term jumps the shark? It's an American term based on our terrible show Happy Days, where they ran out of ideas late in the series and they had the Fonz in his leather jacket water skiing, and then he had to jump while water skiing over a shark. And that became an American catchphrase for things that are kind of out of ideas or at the end of their run or maybe past their point of relevance. So yes, an article that says design thinking can solve the coronavirus jumps the shark. But it also exposes design thinking for how arrogant yet meaningless it often is. It's bad enough that people think design thinking can replace a thorough UX process. Let's please not show up to other industries or world pandemics and tell people how to do their jobs. And if design thinking is this amazing and can solve everything, why do we still have hunger? Why do areas still not have clean water? And it's been 5 months since this January 2020 article was written. Why haven't design thinkers solved the coronavirus already? Get on it, design thinkers. This was going around LinkedIn last year as the UX process, albeit in Portuguese. If you're looking at the screen, you would recognize this as the steps of design thinking, including a mini Olympics of possible technologies, user needs, and business objectives. Is that your process? When you interviewed at your most recent job and they asked your approach to CX or UX design, research, or whatever your specialties are, did you tell them, I do design thinking, and first I create empathy? If I looked at your portfolio work, is that the process that I would see? Why are we socializing, spreading, and training something we don't even do? When you're brought onto a new project at work, do you say to yourself, yep, time to put on my design thinking hat and turn on my design thinking mindset? Of course not. You have CX and UX running through your blood, and there is no off switch. Not everybody defines design thinking the way it was defined 10 or more years ago when it was complete and proper human centered design done by specialists. Design thinking is still changing, but no matter what it means today or tomorrow, you will still do what you are doing. It is running through your blood, and I can't come up with a trendy name to give it because it's a unique talent that not everybody has. Let me put all of this another way. The photo on this screen, and sorry to people listening who can't see this beautiful photo, is of the best pizza I have had in Italy. This handcrafted pizza had amazingly fresh ingredients that exploded with flavor. The right side of the pizza was the finest bufala mozzarella with yellow cherry tomatoes. The left side was a calzone built into the pizza, but it was filled with bufala ricotta and cured smoked pork. Are you dying yet? Are you dying, people who can see this picture? Consider the time this took to create, bake to perfection, and bring to me at the right temperature. Cheese perfectly melted, dough soft but with a crunch. This is art. This is craft. It aims for perfection, and it takes the time to do things right at every step of the process. This is making sure ingredients meet or exceed high standards. When we approach a project with the depth and quality that lives in HCD and UCD, we are making a pizza like this, and we will satisfy customers and meet their needs the way this pizza does. Design thinking is microwave pizza. It's fast and it's okay for some people, but it was designed and created in a factory aimed at efficiency. Microwaving a pizza, even if you could get a certificate in it, wouldn't make you know anything about how a real pizza is made. The microwave pizza barely looks like pizza. And people listening, again, you can't see the picture. It's terrible. It's a Kroger 3-minute microwave pizza that says pepperoni. But the pepperoni needs air quotes because it looks like cubes of factory pressed mystery meat. But you could eat this. You could say, job done. I am the best pizza microwaver around. People love to say, well, design thinking works at our company. Define works. What are your success criteria? How are you calculating what design thinking training and exercises are costing? Where are the results? What is the actual ROI? Has anybody compared this to giving CX specialists the time, budget, headcount, and resources with the shortcuts and, oh, sorry. Has anybody compared this to giving CX specialists the time, budget, headcount, and resources we need to do our best work? I'm guessing not, because everybody's in love with the shortcuts and things that sound like cool startups do them. Why do we want to emulate startups who fail like 90% of the time? Some people tell me they'll start their team or company with design thinking, but later on, they hope to teach them about HCD or UCD. But if your company feels that design thinking is working, and especially if all the design thinking evangelism says this is the way to do things, why do more than microwaving pizza later? Design thinking is not a gateway to proper CX or UX any more than this 3-minute microwave Kroger pizza is the gateway to the amazing pizza I had in Italy. Design thinking is trying too hard to look like the way to go. Companies are replacing UX managers with head of design thinking. And I have a slide coming up about a design strategist job. Ooh, it's going to hurt. This is one of many reminders that UX and design thinking aren't the same thing. One could replace the other. Are you sure this is the direction you want our profession to go in? If you had both pizzas completely available to you, why would you ever eat microwave pizza again? Are you sure the outcomes are worth what time you think you saved? And if this product needs a lot of work and fixing later, did you really save a lot of time? We have a couple of relevant comments popping up in the chat. Heath says, you loved it because the chef had empathy for your palate. And Darren says, awesome analogy with the pizza. Thank you. Come visit me and eat that good pizza. Back when I was doing research for my book and trying to find the good in design thinking, I stumbled on a blog post written by a marketing expert. And I'm going to read this out loud for the people who can't see the screen, and then I'm going to break it down. Quote, as someone not trained in the formal aesthetics of design, I use design thinking daily, and I train other non-designers to do so too. And who wouldn't benefit from being more strategic while also being more insightful and empathetic or more solutions oriented? This is the genius of design thinking. It captures the best traits of creatives, innovators, and designers, and it consolidates those traits into a simple strategic framework. Designers create simple human solutions for complex problems, brilliantly in many cases, but they aren't the only ones who can. End quote. All right, let's break down some of the key points in this quote because it kind of sounds like, hey, if I put on a plumber's tool belt, I should be able to use those tools correctly. We can all solve complex plumbing problems with a few easy steps. I'm thinking like a plumber and I'm using a plumber's best traits and abilities. So the first thing I noticed when I read this quote was she's in marketing. She's not trained in design. She's not a designer. But now that she gets design thinking, she's training other non-designers on it. Did you imagine that new design thinkers will turn around and teach others based on how they understood whatever design thinking course they took? This non-designer is teaching other non-designers to do design thinking, and who knows what she's saying. She believes, the second thing I noticed was she believes that design thinking has made her more strategic, insightful, empathetic, and solutions oriented. Most of you probably wish that the people around us were more problem focused rather than solutions oriented. I think they were all pretty solutions oriented to begin with. The focus should be on finding the real problems and digging deeply into them. The solutions won't be right unless we have fantastic details and solid data around problems. As for the other self-assessments, we already know that some people are great at assessing themselves and some fall into the Dunning-Kruger black hole. The next thing I noticed about what she said, which truly blew my mind, was design thinking captures the best traits from creatives, innovators, and designers, boiling them down to a simple framework. Can CX and UX problem solving and design work be boiled down to a simple framework? The marketing professional behind this quote is sure it has been. The best traits of a variety of different roles have been distilled so that this marketing expert and others doing design thinking don't need CX experts to help them with problems or solutions. We're making ourselves go extinct and proving others don't need our specialties and expertise. Just take the design thinking pill and you can do what Debbie does, just the way she does it. When other roles are sure that they can do our jobs, we've hurt CX and UX as a practice, and we run the risk that the customer's experiences aren't as awesome as they could be. But Deb, what about team building? Work by committee, democratization, and team exercises and all kinds of workshops, they are sold as great ways to do team building. Put on your critical thinking hats. Oh, I don't have my critical thinking hat with me today. My boyfriend will go and bring it to me. Thank you, honey. I'm so sorry I forgot to prepare my props. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, I'm going to put on a set of Mickey Mouse ears that I own, and I like to call that my critical thinking hat. Thank you to my boyfriend for the assist, as always, though I know it doesn't go very well with my, here we go. For those of you watching the video, my critical thinking hat is on. A little hard to see. It's my steampunk Disney ears, made by Disney. It's from their couture collection. Because you know me, I'm all about the couture. So here we go. Steampunk Disney ears on. Critical thinking hat on. You put on yours. Number 1, if team building is best done by group exercises and workshops, where are all of the group exercises and workshops being run by marketing, product management, project management, scrum masters, developers, and QA testers? They all have work we could all sketch and brainstorm. Yet how many of those workshops or exercises are done at your company? Probably 0. That means that the excuse of team building is a lie, since if this is how we build teams, we would do it in all areas and all domains at our company. Number 2, critical thinking hats still on. I researched how to build teams online, and I found mountains of articles, including those published by the New York Times, Forbes, Harvard Business Review, and Entrepreneur.com. 0 of these articles said to hold exercises and workshops where everybody does one role's job. Not even close. None of them even said anything about workshops and team exercises. Most of the team building advice included things like get to know each other, understand what each role does, value and respect those roles, lay groundwork for work styles and deadlines, improve communication, set measurable team goals, celebrate successes with awards and recognition, and talk about failures and where things could improve. If you understand what CX and UX roles do, and you value CX and UX, you will stop holding design exercises for the team and all of these workshops. That means no design sprints, no co-design working sessions, no group design thinking craft exercises where we glue macaroni to a plate. How will you get ideas from other people? Ask them. Or hold an ideation workshop without sketching, where people share ideas but don't have to draw exact executions of ideas. Okay, next slide, I'm going to take off my critical thinking hat and I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Someone said they liked the hat. Who was it? Talita. Hi, Talita. I like that hat too. It's very rare. All right, now I've got a great line across my face from where I was wearing Mickey ears. All right, so you can also tell that design thinking isn't UX or CX or user-centered design when you see a job like this. Here's a job I found, and the title was Design Strategist. I think many of us, especially if you've worked in UX or CX 4, 5, or more years, you'd probably love to have a job that is Design Strategist. But here's what was in the job. And again, there's a lot of words on the screen right now. I'm not going to read them for people who are listening only, but it was all of the bullet points of what the job wanted, and I'll just make my points about it, and that should be good enough. Basically, for this job, you are going to plan and run workshops. You need to bring together various parties to design a solution. It's not for you to design a solution. You might get to do some pre-workshop research. You will facilitate group activities like persona building and journey mapping, which I just warned you shouldn't be group activities. They should not be team craft projects. These should be left to experts. And most interestingly, this job description stresses that the UX work is mostly prototyping, but with less emphasis on final prototypes. So who does that? Ultimately, this clearly isn't a UX job. It doesn't even sound like a design strategy job. There was nothing here or in the rest of the job description that mentioned user-centered design or human-centered design. Mentioning UX prototypes here was the only mention of UX in the entire job description. That means an agile coach with a design thinking facilitation certificate and who knows how to use InVision could qualify for this job, right? Is that who should strategize design at this or any company? I'm a design strategist, but this is not what I do. We've got a comment from the room. Darren says, I love what you said about the plumber's belt. Design thinking offers people the opportunity to transcend into and engage in a fantasy role. It facilitates a Dunning-Kruger mindset and fosters toxicity between participants and design experts. I'd have to agree. Part of the reason I would like to see the phrase design thinking fade away is that it has simultaneously come to mean everything and nothing. It can mean as little as someone who is sure they're considering customers when doing their work. It can mean an entire, complete, user-centered design approach. So I saw a job posted last year to LinkedIn. It was for a graphic designer, and the job description said the graphic designer must have a, quote, stellar portfolio requiring you to show the craft and discipline of design thinking, end quote. So what does that mean? So I posted to LinkedIn and I asked the people who are connected to me or following me, how can a graphic designer show the craft and discipline of design thinking? Here's some of their answers, though I paraphrased some of them. One person said, a description of their design process should suffice. Someone else said, process artifacts. Although I find it odd that a graphic designer position would require design thinking, two completely different levels of work. Sounds like someone wants to underpay a genius. Someone else said, someone at this company heard of design thinking and is now applying it to every design job. No idea how you would show design thinking in a portfolio. Someone else said, it shows a lack of understanding about design thinking. Putting graphic in front of designer means they must deliver a visual outcome or output. Someone else said, how did they iterate and test? Though a graphic design portfolio might have trouble showing how they tested. Someone else said, showing iterations and stages would be interesting to show development and refinement, but it might not be clear whether those tweaks were self-critical or comments from colleagues and or the client. I think they're trying to avoid seeing beautiful Photoshop work or a pretty graphic that doesn't have any real meaning or context. Someone else said, the discipline of design thinking translates to how does your work utilize design best practices to best meet strategic goals. And someone else said, it sounds like they mean thought process, but with so many job descriptions being written with SEO in mind, they probably wanted a trendy term to rank higher in search results. Wow, like no two of these were the same. We don't even know, and we can't even agree on how someone would demonstrate that they did design thinking. How would you show that you empathized? Can you do design thinking without designing? Can you do design without design thinking? Can you do thinking without design thinking? There's so many questions here. At UX Copenhagen in March 2020, the godfather, or one of the godfathers of modern UX, Don Norman, talked for 2 hours about seemingly every topic, from UX autonomy to our seat at the table to designing ventilators in the pandemic to partnering with teammates at our jobs. He took questions and he spoke for 2 hours. He had so many moments where he arrived at a question, what do we do about that? Or how can we do something in a different way? And he never said design thinking. Not once. And he could. He knows those words. And he didn't tell everybody to be design thinkers. We even had one question from the audience. How do you inspire a team of designers? He didn't say socialize design thinking. He didn't say do design thinking exercises. You'll find Don Norman mentioning design thinking once in a while, but you can tell from how he uses that term that his definition of it goes back decades to when it meant full human-centered design. You care about Don. You trust him and believe in him. I certainly do. I want to make sure that you realize that in 2 hours of Don talking about our industry and our struggles, he didn't suggest design thinking, design sprints, or following the Lean UX book. Not once. I saw a talk about design thinking being promoted online. The first bullet point was, why has it become so popular? Someone interviewing me on a podcast recently told me design thinking has the coolness factor. These sound like fads that will go away, and design thinking will go away. If you're talking about, if you're doing a talk about a method, approach, or paradigm, your takeaway points should be about how amazingly transformative or transformational, I guess you could say, that it is, and how you have the metrics and tangible results to show how it directly accomplished goals. Now, not how popular it's become or how many people like doing the exercises. There are plenty of awful things and people who are popular. That's not a good reason for anything. I have found that the only people who keep supporting and evangelizing design thinking after hearing me speak about it are making money from it. They train it, they facilitate exercises, they give out certificates. And how will they explain to all those people that they trained or convinced that, oops, it's kind of not a thing, or oops, I really want to now tell you about this other thing, user centered design? That's how you can paint yourself into a corner when you go all in on a fad. When it goes away, you will have a lot to explain to your coworkers, leaders, and clients. That's why I recommend taking it off your LinkedIn now, phasing it out now. Phase into user-centered design and human-centered design with CX and UX specialists that can't be replaced by so-called thinkers. I've got a few more slides. We might go a little bit late today. In many cases, people who've tried to make design thinking better are doing user-centered design or human-centered design and then having teammates sketch solutions. Stop having people sketch solutions. Switch to an ideation workshop and collect ideas without sketches and without crowd guessing which one is best for customers. Remember, Don Norman says in his videos that design thinking is all of human-centered design, which goes beyond thinking. If you have a 1990s definition of design thinking, please just call it human-centered design or user-centered design. Otherwise, I assume you're into the 5 meaningless steps of design thinking that pretty much clone design sprints. If you're facilitating aspirologies, setting up these workshops, participating in them, there's a lot at stake. Nobody wants to say, wow, we spent $50,000 this week on design thinking training or exercises, and it kind of sucked. I'm sure someone has some good numbers out there, but it appears to be so rare that I would imagine that the failure rate of design thinking is actually quite high when looked at end to end and with full financials. We can't just cherry pick a few examples and declare this a fantastic winning way that everybody should use. So we tend to protect aspirologies by focusing on emotional outcomes. I found these quotes online when I was trying to research for tangible benefits of either design thinking or design sprints. Quote, "We saved this client a year or more of effort. We came away with great solutions to test and iterate. We helped the team realize there were opportunities for fundamental product changes aiming at our less sophisticated customers. We learned a lot about which of our users wanted more customization. We had camaraderie with coworkers and appreciated each other's points of view. We had a solid foundation for a tool that would fill one of the company's most glaring functional gaps." End many quotes. CX does these things, and often in less biased and more customer-focused ways. CX would be all over a glaring functional gap if someone gave us the appropriate time, budget, and resources. While our expertise is misunderstood, ignored, or never hired, companies imagine we must find other ways to handle these things. But the answers have been in front of them the whole time. CX experts. Are you calculating what these exercises cost? The cost to get people in a room and have them stab at solutions? The time and money we spent pursuing the idea that won the popular vote? Whether or not it ever went to market? How much did customer support have to help people with it? What was our cost later to fix it? Did we have concrete success criteria for our design thinking efforts and exercises? Or did we declare everything a success because people love team sketching and voting? You don't need these aspirologies if you hire great CX workers and empower them. How did we go from weeks, months, or longer of research and development into, just do some design thinking exercises? CX can save you months and years of wasted effort. We can teach you, we can keep you from taking products and services in directions unlikely to be received well by customers. We were already thinking about the less sophisticated persona that nobody wanted to build for because they were probably an edge case. We identify opportunities to fundamentally change products and services. This is our day to day job. It doesn't require a special workshop or exercise. We mitigate risk reactively, proactively, and predictively. As Larry Marine said many times when I interviewed him for my Delta CX book, Scoreboard, baby. I asked him what he thought of various aspirologies, and he said, okay, let's cut the bull here and ask them what is their success record? What are their best successes? Scoreboard, baby, scoreboard. What have you done? And he said a lot more, but I'll move on. The team exercise can't be measured by the pride people have from walking out of the room after that day, week, or block of time. We're in business and we don't get a trophy for participation, pride, or that workshop was fun. We must measure if these solution focused workshops are consistently producing real solutions for real customers. Once we see solid numbers and how much time was burned only for things to stall or fail, it might be time to stop spending time and money on these popular but flawed approaches. Also, in my book, Angie Bourne emphasized that the team exercise shouldn't be measured by at least we learned something. Did this learning cost what we paid for it? Did CX or UX already know it? How did we capture what we learned and make sure it's applied to future features? We hear that a failure can be good when we learn from it, but we must document it and find ways to apply and use what the failure taught us. Aspirologies will quickly undo themselves when companies are more honest about how much time, money, and customer patience these things burn. And I can't say it enough. Go into your design thinking exercises with success criteria that has to do with real ROI and finances, and you'll probably stop doing design thinking exercises. Design thinking is now a buzzword showing up everywhere, and we can't even be sure what they mean when they use the term. A UX practitioner wrote on LinkedIn, quote, "You don't do design thinking workshops for yourself. You do them for your client," end quote. Is anybody focused on the customer at all? Are you still doing design thinking if the workshop revolves around the stakeholder, client, or business rather than customers? Many product managers, marketers, and engineers know they're not CX experts, but could they be design thinkers? Could they add design thinking to their LinkedIn title or resume and be sure that this is true for them? The curse of using such a broad term with a broad definition is that everybody will think it's a description of themselves. It's like newspaper horoscopes. Make it general enough, and wow, this horoscope really described you well. If a CX expert, a product manager, a QA tester, and a salesperson all say that they are design thinkers, then it would be logical to imagine they're all doing the same things, possibly in the same ways. Maybe when it comes to design, we're all equals. Therefore, CX experts must shift away from using the term design thinking or calling ourselves design thinkers. We must find other words and phrases so that we are communicating more clearly. If experienced CX workers avoid this term, it will become the term of the non-CX worker and the newbie, which will help the term go extinct. It's an attractive term now because we've pinned the term on ourselves, and so many of our coworkers want to believe they can do what we do. Therefore, I offer no replacement word for it, but instead I offer the suggestion that serious UX and CX workers just not say design thinking at all. Using the term legitimizes it and gives it life. Take it off of your LinkedIn, take it off of your resume. If a potential employer found you in a LinkedIn search because you used the term design thinking, but not because you used a pile of CX and UX keywords, that might be a job you don't want. Don't post or share articles that explain design thinking or compare it to other concepts. We have to stop legitimizing it and amplifying it by continuing to talk about it. And last slide. Evangelism. Many of us are actively engaged in CX or UX evangelism at our jobs. Some job descriptions call for UX evangelism. Managerial job descriptions often indicate how UX evangelism is part of the department's strategy. Are you holding meetings about how great and important CX is? Are you struggling to raise the CX or UX maturity at your company? And are you also participating in or facilitating design workshops or design by committee team meetings? Whether or not there is formalized CX or UX evangelism at your company, everything you do teaches coworkers, stakeholders, leadership, and execs about CX. No matter what we call them, aspirologies and design by committee workshops dilute our specializations and teach others they can design products and services. You cannot evangelize CX in any way and propose, promote, take part in, support, or encourage aspirologies that teach others that we can't do our own work ourselves, that our tasks are relatively simple and can be done by anybody, and that solution-focused sketching is the key to CX. I know it's been easy to latch on to design thinking. It caught on. It got people talking about design. You added design thinker to your LinkedIn headline and you ran out and got certified to facilitate workshops. You had people listening to you and you thought it would be the new UX and CX evangelism. You imagined you'd get that seat at the table and people will start caring about the customers and our designs. And you thought that you could just create empathy and make people really care. For all of this to be true, you would have to see design thinking creating a positive shift in how CX and UX are perceived at your company. Are coworkers, leaders, and executives taking CX more seriously, or are they taking design thinking more seriously, but they're still not sure about CX? Are they learning that design thinking is so simple anybody can follow the framework and solve the company's design problems, while believing that CX is a large, expensive, bloated process we don't really need? If you asked for weeks to run research related to a large and new project, will you get that? Because thanks to design thinking, everybody understands that we must invest time, money, resources, and great workers on the user-centered design process? Or will people laugh at you and tell you, you just need to do some design thinking? You can pack everything you need into a few days or a week and even come up with solutions. What are we teaching others about how long CX needs to do their work properly? That's the end of my slides. Thanks to everybody for listening. It ended up taking an hour. We'll focus back on me. Hello. And if you have any last comments or questions, please ask them now because we are over time on our podcast and I am looking to wrap it up so that we don't keep you guys all night long. But Praveen, who was kind enough to see this talk twice this month, says, assuming the right problems were picked in research, what would you suggest teams habituated to group thinking or dot voting exercises to ensure they pick the best possible solutions to test? Here's the funny thing, Praveen. Why do we need the group to pick the best possible solutions to test? Don't you know what the best solutions are to test? And if you don't know, wouldn't you select a couple and maybe do some early prototyping and test 2 or 3 or a few of them through some maybe unmoderated user testing that could be done relatively quickly and inexpensively? Why do we imagine that the best way to pick something for the customer excludes the customer and has to involve everybody at our company voting? You know, nobody else at our company does that. Nobody else at our company says, you know what, we need to find a good marketing campaign this year. So I think we should all just get together and put some sticky notes up about what our marketing campaign could be, and then we'll all dot vote and pick the best one. Your marketing department would never go for that. So why are we doing this stuff? We have to stop giving up our power, our autonomy, and imagining that everyone has to vote on things in our domain. We have to take our power back and we have to control our domain. Um, Darren says, and I'll get to Scott in a moment. Darren says, unqualified UX folks like design thinking so someone else can do their job. Darren is right. I have noticed that there are many UX juniors, UX newbies, people looking to get into UX, people who've gone to UX boot camps who tend to love design thinking, design sprints, and lean UX because all of these things take work off of our plates and put them on the team. And that's really great if you're new to a job and you're worried that you're not good at the job, or you're worried people might notice that you're not good at the job. So the best thing for you to do is maybe spread that work around. I understand that. I have empathy for that, but it's bad. It's bad, and nobody else at our company does this. A new product manager doesn't say, gee, I'm not really too sure what to do here. I hope nobody notices that I'm not really too good at product management yet. I guess I'll just call a lot of group exercises and have everybody manage the product. We don't do that. If you're new to UX and you're struggling with it, please don't pick an aspirology that takes away our power and takes away your expertise and takes away your specialty. Find a mentor or coach who can help you with whatever you are struggling with. There is someone out there who will help you. Find that person and get that help. Please do not teach your coworkers that UX and CX can just be done by everybody because you're afraid that they'll notice you don't totally know what you're doing yet. It's okay to not totally know what you're doing yet, but it's not okay to not get help. Scott says, wondering when the C-suite needs to evangelize their roles. Yeah, I remind everybody that there's no other job at our company that evangelizes their roles. Marketing does not say it's really important to present what we do to people in an attractive way so that they might buy it. QA doesn't say it's important to test code before it gets live because people don't like bugs. Everybody understands everybody else's role and knows how important it is and how important it is to hire specialists in it, people who have education, training, talent, skill, and of course to be able to properly assess that talent and skill during the hiring process. UX is on some other weird planet where it's still so misunderstood that people want to see a pretty portfolio of pretty visual design and graphics, and then they say, this person must be able to do UX, which of course, that's not UX, that's visual design. Any other last comments and questions? Because we are running a little bit late and I wanted to wind up, but it sounds like that people liked some stuff here. And I welcome you guys, of course, to always take my points and use these at work. My whole point in doing podcasts like this is that so that you'll have ammunition at your job. Excuse me, so that you've got ammunition at your job when someone says, hey, run a workshop, or hey, run another workshop. You could say, hey, you know what, that's not really the best way to go. Or I'll run a workshop, but it will be an ideation workshop where I collect ideas and not sketches. Praveen says, I totally agree about not including non-designers in decision making. How do we deal with UX designers indulging in dot voting and shooting down good ideas for prototyping and testing? That's very hard. I mean, I'm not too sure. I think my question would be why? Why did that UX designer ask? Again, when people think that dot voting creates team building, show them the part of this presentation where I showed how these exercises really don't match any of the definitions out there for team building. So if you've got someone who is doing dot voting thinking it's team building, rewind and find the slide where I talked about how that's not team building and why it's not. Maybe that slide will help them. And if other UX designers are shooting down good ideas to prototype and test, again, I would know, why are these people doing this, and how do we know the ideas they're shooting down are good? Because if we haven't tested them yet, maybe it's just our hypothesis that they're good. But if these are our coworkers, I'd probably want to take those people aside privately and say, Why are we dot voting? You don't do designs and hang them at your desk and ask people to come by and vote on which one they like best. We turn to customers to see what's going to work best. We present things to customers. We don't really want our coworkers picking what they think is the best idea, because what they think is the best idea might not be the best idea. Excuse me, I've ended up with hiccups all of a sudden. I'm so sorry. No extra charge for hiccups. Okay, water drank. Wish me luck. So yeah, we have to remember that design thinking really works against us. Just works against us. And so that's why I just want to remind everybody it's not a term we need. It's not something that we do. And I hope you'll take pieces of this podcast and other podcasts I've done and my book and my Medium articles. Send them out. Show them to people. Fast forward to a certain point in the videos, send it out. Send it to your boss. Send it to your boss's boss. I'm trying to give you guys good ammunition to do a better job battling these things where we work, because we really have to stand up, speak out, and undo these things. Otherwise, we run the risk that companies just don't need us. Why does a company need a Debbie, a Darren, a Scott, a Praveen, if they can have a product manager who got a certificate in design thinking? Are these interchangeable? And do we want to accidentally teach where we work that they are? So I ask people to put on your critical thinking hats, whatever it looks like. This one's mine. You can't have it. And I know it doesn't really work on top of my headset, but you just have to have imagination. So put on your critical thinking hats and always think about the outcomes of things. Design thinking sounds great. Design thinking sounds like something we can evangelize. Design thinking sounds like something we can get everybody into. But then what's the outcomes of that? Is the outcome that you are better understood at your job? You get better projects? UX gets more relevant work? UX gets to do more research? Or is everybody just told, do design thinking? So be careful of the outcomes of these things and think through them. If this happens, what could happen next? That's our freaking jobs, to consider possible outcomes. Please, please, please. And Talita's back, and Talita says, thanks, Debbie, to help me not feel weird about not being trendy with design thinking. Thanks, and see you next time. Thank you, Talita, for joining in. I don't know if I've seen you here before, but it's good to see you. So critical thinking, guys. If you really think critically about design thinking, it's bad for us. Just say UX, CX, user-centered design, human-centered design. Don't try to water it down. Everybody's job at our company is complex, and you don't hear other people watering down engineering or DevOps to some sort of Fisher-Price child's toy that sounds like anybody can do it. You do not hear the radiologist at the hospital boiling down x-rays to make it sound like anybody can take an x-ray and read an x-ray. All of these jobs are complex and complicated, and we should allow ourselves that complexity and not try to undo ourselves. With that, let's have a couple of quick show notes and then we'll wrap it up. Let me check the calendar of what is coming next. Tomorrow is office hours. I had to move it from Tuesday. Tomorrow's office hours, Ask Me Anything. That's June 18, 2020. Looking at next week, we've got some great podcasts planned. Monday, June 22nd, will be surveys and kind of pooping on surveys. So join in on that. Tuesday will be office hours. Wednesday, I'll be doing a podcast on UX titles. What's wrong with them? What should they be? What can we do about UX titles? The end of June, we've got some stuff planned. Monday, June 29th, we'll be making physical products digital with Matteo Graton. At least that's how I say his last name, but he might tell me otherwise. Tuesday, June 30th, last day of June, is office hours, ask me anything. And then I'm still planning some July stuff. So be on the lookout on LinkedIn and in the Google Calendar for what is coming next. And please feel free to join in. Remember, if you can't join in live, everything is archived on the YouTube channel, the Delta CX YouTube channel, which I encourage you to subscribe to. Please subscribe to the Delta CX YouTube channel and ring that bell so that you know when I am live or have put up a new video. And of course, please join my Slack workspace, which is completely free. I and other people are there answering questions. I think we've got almost 150 people now, so it's starting to be a little bit of a cooking community, and you can find it at deltacx.link/join Slack as one word, all lowercase. That will redirect you to an open invitation to join the Slack workspace. And as always, you can find me on LinkedIn. Praveen says, thank you, Debbie. It was so worth attending your talk on the same topic again, and I bought a Kindle version of your book. Thank you so much, Praveen. Thank you for being a fan. I'm a fan of you as well. So thanks to everybody. Stay safe. Hopefully next time, you'll see me tomorrow. My skin will probably still be peeling and I'll be making excuses. But I hope everybody has a super Wednesday. Thanks for joining in on Design Thinking, jumping the shark, and I will see you all very soon.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.